What if I told you that you don't need everything to be okay in order to be at peace? Maybe you're going through one of those moments when everything falls apart. You lose something you thought was certain. A relationship breaks. Your health starts to fail. Money isn't enough. The future becomes a fog. And you just want to breathe without feeling like the world is collapsing on you. But there's something that hurts even more than chaos. Feeling like you're getting lost in it. Feeling like you have no control, that everything is slipping through your hands, that no matter how hard you try, you can't stop life from crumbling. And when that happens, we desperately search for answers. We want to fix everything, understand everything, save everything. But the more we fight, the more exhausted we become. Because no one taught us the essential truth. You can't control the chaos, but you can learn not to collapse with it. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire in crisis without losing his center. Epictetus lost his freedom but never his composure. Seneca watched his world fall apart and still wrote about serenity. What was their secret? They didn't cling to the external. They trained every day to cultivate an inner calm that didn't depend on the outside world, a calm that didn't come from everything being okay, but from knowing who you are when everything is not. And that is what you're about to discover. This Stoic session is a direct invitation to your soul, not to ignore the chaos, but to learn how to walk through it without losing yourself, to breathe when everything seems to be collapsing, to rediscover yourself in the middle of disaster, because when everything falls apart, you can still remain standing. You can still be a refuge. You can still be the calm. Your first step, your decision not to give up, and the reminder that your strength does not lie in what you hold on the outside, but in what you build on the inside. Before we begin, I invite you to declare your commitment by commenting, "From today on, I cultivate calm, even if everything falls apart." Let that phrase be your anchor, a reminder that you're here to reclaim your center, not to keep losing yourself in what you cannot control. This is the moment to come back to yourself, to protect your peace, and to show yourself that you deserve to live in serenity, even when everything around you is trembling. Without further ado, let's begin. First Stoic lesson: don't control the chaos, control yourself. There are moments when everything seems to fall apart. The news offers no comfort, your surroundings become unpredictable, the people you trusted disappear. Carefully drawn plans collapse without warning, and you, trapped in the middle of that storm, desperately try to bring order. You try to fix everything, to anticipate, to prevent the wreckage from consuming you as well. But the harder you try, the more exhausted you become. The more you try to control what is not yours to command, the more you feel yourself sinking. Marcus Aurelius knew this all too well. As Emperor of Rome, he faced wars, plagues, betrayals, political chaos, and personal losses. He could have drowned trying to hold together an empire that threatened to crumble every day. But instead of losing himself in despair, he wrote a phrase in his meditations that still lives on centuries later. Let the power to direct your life be within yourself. Because he understood that the only real sovereignty is that of the soul. You can't stop the storm, but you can learn not to drown in it. Stoic philosophy doesn't deny the chaos. It doesn't sugarcoat it. It doesn't minimize it. It tells you the truth face to face. The world is uncertain, and all external things are fragile. Relationships can change, the body can fall ill, money can disappear, life can be interrupted. But that doesn't mean you're doomed to collapse with what falls apart, because there's an invisible boundary that chaos cannot cross, the one set by your trained mind. Epictetus explained it like this: there are things that depend on us and things that do not. Peace begins when we recognize that difference. When you obsess over changing what's beyond your reach, you're planting the seeds of your own suffering. But when you focus your energy on mastering what truly is within your control, your thoughts, your decisions, your emotions, you begin building an inner fortress that no storm can breach. Controlling yourself doesn't mean repressing your emotions or pretending to be strong. It means becoming aware of what you're feeling, facing your reality with honesty, and choosing to respond with virtue instead of reacting with panic. It means choosing temperance when others lose control. It means remembering your worth when the world wants to reduce you to fear. Not trying to control chaos is not resignation, it is wisdom. It is understanding that some battles are won by not fighting, by simply withdrawing your attention from what you cannot change, and focusing it on what you can cultivate: your character, your serenity, your clarity. That is the true Stoic discipline, to act with firmness amid disorder, without letting disorder take root within you. Picture yourself in a boat during a storm. You can't calm the sea, you can't stop the wind, but you can hold the rudder firmly. You can stay your course. You can keep fear from taking the wheel. That is what it means to be stoic. Not denying there's danger, but refusing to surrender to it. When everything collapses, your first instinct will be to hold on to the external, the house, the job, the routine, the people. But the most valuable thing you can do is hold on to yourself. Because when you are steady, you can rebuild, you can lead, you can inspire others who are also trembling. Seneca said, "We are not disturbed by what happens to us, but by what we think about what happens to us." So the next time everything feels like it's collapsing, ask yourself, am I trying to control the uncontrollable, or am I training my mind to endure with wisdom? Every minute you invest in cultivating your temperance is an investment in your freedom. Every thought you observe without letting it dominate you is a victory over chaos. Every time you choose calm, even when the world screams, you are declaring that your power does not lie in controlling circumstances, but in governing yourself. This is not about wishing the world were easier, it's about becoming stronger, clearer, more you, and that's a choice you can make today, right now. While everything falls apart out there, you can begin to rise within. Second Stoic lesson: observe without judging. Imagine waking up in the middle of an earthquake. Everything vibrates, objects fall, alarms blare. Instinctively, your mind labels it: danger, loss, fear. That label, instant and loaded with judgment, amplifies the inner tremor. But what would happen if for a moment you could see the scene as pure movement? Without adjectives, without a verdict, just raw reality. Seneca said, "Suffering multiplies in the mind that interprets." The fact itself is neutral. Judgment is what makes it unbearable. When you label the situation as a total disaster, your body releases adrenaline, your thoughts narrow, your outlook darkens. But if instead you simply note, "This is movement," your nervous system receives a different message. It becomes possible to observe, to breathe, to make clear decisions. A Roman soldier once recounted that in the middle of battle he remembered this practice, to observe the scene without labeling it. He saw swords, heard screams, smelled iron. He didn't say to himself, "This is horrible," or "I'm going to die." He recorded the raw data, and thanks to that clarity, found a passage to evacuate his comrades. Objectivity saved lives where panic would have written death sentences. Not judging is not indifference. It's a strategy to free mental resources. When chaos demands reaction, the mind collapses if you overwhelm it with adjectives. Practicing stripped-down observation opens a space between stimulus and response, a space where virtue can emerge. Epictetus taught his students to describe first, interpret later. Upon hearing news of a loss, they would say, "An external circumstance has changed." Only after that would they consider which virtuous action was appropriate. That tiny delay, mere seconds, was enough to keep them from drowning in their initial emotion. Bring this practice into your daily life. When you receive a layoff notice, before labeling it failure, say, "I have received new job-related information." It may sound absurd, but it changes your brain chemistry. Your neocortex activates, your limbic system settles. From there, you make wiser decisions. Watch your inner dialogue too. How often do you turn a minor setback into a catastrophe? A missed train becomes, "My life is a mess." A critique becomes, "I'm worthless." That kind of hyperbole is an automatic judgment that adds emotional weight. The Stoic exercise proposes this. Name it neutrally. I will arrive later. I am receiving feedback. By removing the drama, you reclaim energy. Marcus Aurelius practiced this each night in writing. He would list the day's events without embellishment. The grain shipment was delayed. It rained during council. A senator showed hostility. Then he'd ask, "What virtuous response is required of me?" His journal was a laboratory of clear perception. Applying this in the midst of crisis takes discipline, but it's possible. When your heart races, repeat to yourself, describe, don't judge. Breathe. Notice colors, sounds, textures. Connect with sensory objectivity. Only then, and only then, formulate your plan. To withhold judgment doesn't mean abandoning values. It means delaying the label until calm returns. It means taking the judge off the bench while evidence is still arriving. This prevents rash verdicts against yourself or the world. Try this exercise this week. Pick a tense moment, traffic, argument, technical failure, and quietly describe what you see with no good or bad. Notice how your internal pressure decreases. That drop is space dash, and in space, calm is born, because external chaos is already loud enough. Adding your mental screams is optional. Seneca would say, "The mind that observes without judgment becomes a witness, not a hostage." So next time everything feels like it's falling apart, remember, the first line of defense is a neutral gaze. Observe the earthquake, feel the floor shake, but don't label it the end of the world. You'll find that, on the other side of this simple practice, an unshakable refuge begins to open your inner calm. And that calm begins with one decision: describe before you judge. But don't forget, this practice doesn't just transform your reactions, it also transforms your relationships. When you learn to observe without judgment, you begin to see others with more compassion. You understand that the one who yells might be afraid, that the one who attacks is often defending against their own ghosts. Objectivity not only brings peace, it brings humanity. And in the middle of chaos, few things are more powerful than seeing the world with clean eyes, free of contaminating filters. Because there, in that serene gaze, true order begins. And that, dear listener, is entirely up to you. Your inner calm is not a luxury. It's a necessity. If today you decide to stop living at the mercy of chaos and begin building serenity from within, subscribe. This is your refuge to reconnect with yourself, breathe deeply, and learn to stand firm when everything else collapses. Don't let external disorder extinguish your peace. Let's continue. Third Stoic lesson: chaos reveals your true character. When everything is in order, anyone can seem virtuous. Serenity in times of peace isn't a test, it's a comfort. But when the world breaks down, when stability disappears, when emotional pillars start to tremble, that's when the truth emerges. Epictetus repeated it constantly to his students. Want to know who you are? Watch how you respond to adversity. Because chaos doesn't invent weaknesses, it reveals them. It doesn't create flaws, it exposes them. It doesn't fabricate strengths, it awakens them. Imagine being in a dark room. Only in darkness can you truly know whether there's light within you. It's the same with character. Noise, collapse, chaos, they're the blackout of the external world. And there, when there are no applause, no certainties, no support, you discover whether your inner light truly exists. One day, a student of Epictetus came back defeated. He had lost his home to a fire. He expected comfort, perhaps a lesson in resignation. But the sage, with compassionate firmness, said, "Today you have a rare opportunity, one that many fear, to see who you are without adornments, without your house, without your comforts. What remains? That is you." That phrase strikes hard, because we live believing we are what surrounds us, our job, our partner, our body, our reputation. But when all of that collapses, you don't become no one. You become who you've always been, without costumes. Chaos is the great revealer. And though it terrifies, it is also a gateway to authenticity. If, in the midst of the collapse, you can remain standing with dignity, if you don't betray your values, if you choose composure when panic would be the easy way out, then you are cultivating character. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "Fire tests gold, calamity tests men." He didn't seek tragedy, but he didn't fear it either. Because every time the world failed him, he had a meeting with himself, and he knew that meeting was the true school of the soul. In chaotic times, many lose control. They scream, they blame, they flee, and that too is human. But the Stoic stops, breathes, looks inward, not to escape pain, but to anchor his response in the best part of himself. The next time it all seems to fall apart, ask yourself a single question. What is this situation trying to show me about myself? You might see impatience, anger, fear, or you might discover resilience, courage, faith. Whatever it is, don't run. Look, learn. Self-knowledge, even when it hurts, is power. You'll also discover that character is not a fixed statue. It's forged, polished, improved. Every time you choose self-control over reaction, silence over judgment, compassion over criticism, you're sculpting your own inner monument. In a letter, Seneca wrote, "When the sea is calm, all ships are good. It is in the storm that the sailor is revealed." Are you captain of your soul or just a passenger tossed by waves? The good news is you don't need to be perfect. You only need to be willing to look at yourself without masks, willing to fail, but also to correct, willing to use every collapse as raw material, to build something more solid within. And remember, character is not shown through words, but through actions. You can recite 1,000 wise phrases, but if at the first sign of pressure you lose your composure, those phrases are just decorations. But if you stay silent to listen, if you think before responding, if you hold on to your integrity even when it costs you, there lies character. Today, more than ever, in a world collapsing at breakneck speed, we need people who not only survive chaos, but remain upright within it, because those people, and you can be one of them, don't just save themselves, they become beacons for others. So when everything around you is falling apart, see it as the most sacred test, not to prove anything to the world, but to show yourself who you truly are and who you're willing to become. Because there, on that cracked ground, you can build the one thing that no one can ever take from you, a character that does not tremble before the storm. And that, dear listener, is worth more than any fleeting sense of security. It's worth more even than order itself. Fourth Stoic lesson: nothing is permanent, not even chaos. When you're caught in a storm, everything feels eternal. Pain seems endless, confusion becomes a daily landscape, and fear settles like an unwelcome guest in your mind. But there's one truth the Stoics repeated with unwavering clarity, a truth as simple as it is powerful: everything passes. This too, Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote as a reminder to himself that time devours everything: success, failure, joy, and suffering. All things are temporary. Nothing, no matter how overwhelming it may seem, has the power to remain forever, not even chaos. And yet, when something collapses in your life, it feels definitive. A breakup, a loss, a crisis of meaning, an unexpected illness. Your mind whispers that nothing will ever be okay again. That order is gone and you won't be able to rebuild it. That pain is now your new normal. But that isn't real. It's just the illusion of permanence that suffering creates. It's the veil chaos drapes over your eyes, so you forget that, even in the heart of a hurricane, cycles keep moving forward. Cycles that don't need your permission to continue. Seneca said that the wise person doesn't cling to what they have because they understand that everything that arrives will also leave. The key isn't to stop change, but to embrace it with dignity, because when you truly grasp that what hurts today will also fade, a new kind of calm is born, not resignation, emotional clarity. Think of a thunderstorm. It's intense, deafening, even terrifying, but it never lasts forever. The sky isn't broken, it's undergoing a transformation, and you, like the sky, can endure your own inner lightning without forgetting that the sun is still there, even if you can't see it. The Stoics practiced this awareness of time not just as comfort, but as training. They knew that remembering impermanence helps you keep perspective, that a bad day doesn't define a bad life, that one mistake doesn't destroy your worth, that a painful phase doesn't erase your capacity to rebuild. When everything falls apart, part of you wants to cling to the past, wants everything to go back to the way it was, but the past doesn't return, and that may be the best news of your life, because if nothing is permanent, that includes your fears, your wounds, your limiting beliefs. The chaos that overwhelms you today is not a sentence, it's a season, and like every season, this one also has an end date. Epictetus taught that serenity arises when we stop demanding the world be eternal, predictable, or fair. Serenity appears when we accept that everything changes, and that this isn't a tragedy, but a natural law, and acceptance is not the same as giving up. Acceptance is letting go of the pointless fight against the inevitable. It's choosing to spend your energy adapting, observing, preparing for what's coming. Instead of exhausting yourself wishing what's broken could be exactly as it was. In the midst of chaos, repeat this phrase to yourself: this too shall pass. Write it down, remember it, breathe it in, because it's not just a mantra, it's a truth. No storm has ever lasted forever. No winter has ever stopped spring from returning, and while you wait for it to pass, don't remain frozen. Use that time to look inward, to organize your thoughts, to clean your inner space, to prepare for the rebirth that follows collapse. Remember, there is no growth without renewal, and there is no renewal without loss. Chaos is sometimes the price we pay for a new order, one that is deeper, more aligned, wiser. So when everything falls apart, don't obsess over rebuilding what once was. Focus on creating what is yet to come. Because if nothing is permanent, then you too can transform. You too can let go of the old version of yourself that no longer fits. You too can be reborn. And that, dear soul listening, is the greatest power there is. To know that even if you can't control the world, you can choose how you move through it, with fear or with calm, and that calm, I assure you, comes from the deep certainty that chaos did not come to destroy you. It came to show you that everything changes, and so can you. Fifth Stoic lesson: simplify your inner world. When the outside world becomes unbearable, the only way to endure it is by making your inner world a livable place. And not livable because you have all the answers, but because it's free of excess, cleared of noise, free from that anxiety born of carrying what doesn't belong to you. We live surrounded by complexity, opinions, problems, notifications, demands, invasive thoughts. Each day becomes an endless to-do list, and each thought links to another until your mind no longer feels like a refuge, but a battlefield. But the Stoics taught a different way of living, one that's lighter, more centered, more essential. Marcus Aurelius practiced it every morning, returning to what matters, identifying what depends on him, what doesn't, and acting with mental sobriety. Mental sobriety. Can you imagine what it would be like to live that way? Not intoxicated by catastrophic thinking, not jumping from one worry to another, not draining yourself trying to fix problems that don't even exist yet, but inhabiting your mind like someone walking into an orderly space where everything has its place and nothing is unnecessary. Seneca put it powerfully: it's not that we have little time, but that we waste much of it. And one of the most common ways we waste it is by allowing our mind to fill with what's unnecessary. Assumptions about assumptions, imagined scenarios, internal complaints, pointless anger. In moments of chaos, simplifying isn't a luxury, it's emotional survival. You can't stop the storm outside, but you can make sure there are no loose objects inside your mind hitting you with every jolt. You can turn your mind into a clearer, safer space. How? Start with the most obvious and most difficult step. Eliminate what you can't control. If it's not in your hands, it doesn't deserve your anguish. Yes, it hurts. Yes, it matters to you. But carrying what you cannot change doesn't make you responsible. It makes you a prisoner. Next, reduce your tendency to overinterpret. You don't need to label everything that happens. You don't need to understand every detail of your chaos. Sometimes it's just happening. Sometimes the wisest thing you can do is observe, breathe, and let it pass. Then define your priorities. What is truly essential to you today? What sustains you in the midst of collapse? What small things, a habit, a conversation, a moment of silence, bring you back to center? Hold on to that, not to everything, just that. Because what is essential never burdens. What is essential saves. And lastly, practice renunciation, not as defeat, but as an act of emotional intelligence. Let go of the demand for perfection. Let go of the need to please everyone. Let go of the illusion of control. Inner peace doesn't come from accumulation, it comes from release. The Stoics didn't seek more, they sought better. Better attention, better character, better handling of the inevitable. And that refinement is only possible when you strip away the excess. When you clean your inner world as someone who sweeps a room after a storm. Because when everything is falling apart, your resources shrink, your energy is limited, your mind is tired. You don't have the luxury of carrying useless thoughts. You need lightness. You need clarity, you need focus. And clarity doesn't arrive on its own. It is trained, it is cultivated, it must be defended. So if today you feel like everything around you is falling apart, return to yourself. But don't return burdened, return light, with only what is necessary, with the essential. Because it's in that reduced, clear space that true calm begins to bloom. Remember, the disorder outside does not have to contaminate the serenity within, and every thought you choose to release is a step toward your inner strength. Make your mind a temple, not a storage room. Make your soul a home, not a landfill for borrowed fears. Make your inner space so clean and solid that no storm, no matter how brutal, can tear it down. There, right there, begins the kind of freedom no one can ever take from you. Sixth Stoic lesson: every crisis is a disguised teacher. At first glance, a crisis seems to be the opposite of learning. It's confusion, it's anguish, it's rupture. But if you observe it closely, not with the eyes of someone trying to escape, but with the eyes of someone willing to understand, you'll see that behind every collapse lies a brutal opportunity to grow. And no, this isn't some self-help cliché. It's an ancient truth the Stoics understood better than anyone. The obstacle is not just part of the path. The obstacle is the path. Epictetus experienced this firsthand. He was a slave, humiliated, invisible to the world, but in the midst of what many would call a miserable life, he cultivated a free, serene, and unshakable mind. Because he understood something no one could take from him: his power to learn, and every crisis, no matter how painful, carries a lesson that only you can uncover. But of course, when you're in the middle of chaos, the last thing you want is someone telling you everything happens for a reason. Because sometimes, honestly, it just doesn't feel that way. There's no clarity, just pain, just uncertainty, just loss. And it's okay to feel that. It's okay to break down, and it's okay to not understand anything at all. Stoicism doesn't deny pain. It looks it in the eye, and then it asks, what can I do with this? How can I grow from here? What is this experience teaching me, even if it hurts right now? Because personal growth doesn't happen on calm days. It happens when life demands that you be wiser than you thought you could be, stronger than you felt, more aware than you used to be. Seneca said, "No tree grows strong if it is sheltered from the wind." Strength comes from friction, from shaking, from challenge, and yes, from collapse too. Because when everything falls apart, you finally see what truly holds you up. Maybe the crisis you're going through right now is showing you that you were leaning on fragile things, on a toxic relationship, on a job that was draining your soul, on a version of success that was actually a cage. Maybe you see it now, maybe not yet. But the moment will come when you understand that without this fall, you never would have realized what needed to be released, what had to be rebuilt, what, no matter how much it hurt, no longer had a place in your path. And here's the most important part. A crisis doesn't teach you by default. Learning is a choice. You can stay trapped in pain, in anger, in resentment, or you can transform that pain into a source of wisdom. Not because you should, but because you owe it to yourself, because you deserve for this suffering to mean something, to become something useful, to not have been in vain. So how do you do that? With time, with reflection, with compassion toward yourself, and with honest questions. What part of me needs strengthening? What belief is crumbling that I'm afraid to let go of? What is this loss teaching me about value, patience, or self-respect? You might not have all the answers today, but if you start asking those questions, you'll be cultivating something few people allow themselves to: emotional wisdom. That wisdom doesn't come from books. It comes from sleepless nights, from cleansing tears, from hard decisions that break you a little, but also reveal your true resilience. It comes from silence, from fresh starts, from looking back without hatred, just with gratitude for having survived. The Stoics weren't immune to pain. They used it. They turned it into mastery. And that's available to you too. You don't need to be a philosopher. You just need to be willing to learn from the chaos. Because every crisis that arrives in your life, no matter how unfair it seems, can leave you with something you didn't have before. More awareness, more humility, more presence, more compassion, and above all, a deeper connection with who you truly are when you have nothing left to prove. So look at it carefully, not as punishment, not as tragedy. See it for what it is, a teacher in disguise. Let it teach you what you came here to learn. And if it hurts, don't deny it. Hold it gently. Allow yourself to feel it all, because only those who allow themselves to feel can truly heal. And remember this: when everything around you is falling apart, you still get to decide what rises within you. That choice is freedom. The freedom to grow in the storm. The freedom to turn pain into wisdom. The freedom to return to yourself, stronger, wiser, and more human than ever before. If you've made it this far, it means you're ready to reclaim the calm your soul deserves. Follow us and comment, "I choose peace, not chaos," to affirm your commitment to a life of serenity and awareness. This is just the first step toward a firmer, more balanced existence. When we reach the 9th lesson, you'll discover an essential key that can transform how you face the world's disorder. Let's keep going. 7th Stoic lesson: your peace doesn't depend on the outside world. What if I told you that you don't need everything around you to be okay in order to feel okay inside? Maybe it sounds like a cheap consolation, like something written on a motivational coffee mug, but it's not. It is, in fact, one of the most powerful principles of Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius wrote it in his meditations while facing wars, betrayals, and illness. Perfect tranquility consists in the good ordering of the mind, in your own self-governance. In other words, peace isn't found out there. It is built in here. But of course, it's easy to say. The real challenge is to live it, because we live in a world that drags you with it. Alarming news, social media comparisons, demanding bosses, confusing relationships. Chaos seeps into every crack of your day. And before you even notice, your inner peace is in pieces. And there, you make a subtle but common mistake. You believe that in order to feel calm again, you need to change your environment. When I finish this project, I'll feel better. When this problem gets solved, I'll be able to rest. When that person changes, I'll finally be at peace. But that when never comes. Because if your peace depends on things outside of you, it will always be fragile. It will always be in someone else's hands. It will always be temporary. Epictetus, the slave who became a wise man, put it clearly. It's not events that disturb us, but our opinions about them. It's not chaos that breaks you. It's your attachment to how things should be. It's your expectation of control. It's your resistance to accepting what you cannot change. True peace isn't born from an ideal environment. It's born from a mind that has learned to live within disorder, without surrendering to it. And it's not about resignation. It's about inner strength, the ability to look at a storm without becoming the storm. So how do you cultivate that strength? First, by training your attention. Stop mentally feeding what drains you. Every time you replay an argument, every time you imagine disasters, every time you punish yourself over the past, you are weakening your peace. The Stoics practiced the art of returning to the present, of observing thoughts without identifying with them, of letting go of the unnecessary, and above all, of remembering that the only true freedom lies in how you choose to respond. Second, take care of your inner language. Do you speak to yourself with compassion or with judgment? Do you treat yourself like your worst enemy, or like someone worthy of being held with kindness? Peace is also born in the way you speak to yourself when everything is falling apart. Third, set boundaries. Chaos often enters because you don't know how to say no, because you carry what isn't yours to carry, because you try to fix everything, control everything, take on everything, and that, more than a virtue, is a form of self-abandonment. The Stoics knew that part of wisdom is knowing what to carry and what to put down. Self-discipline is also choosing not to be dragged by every storm that isn't yours. It's becoming aware of which battles deserve your energy and which are just emotional traps set by the ego. Sometimes keeping your peace requires disappointing others, setting limits, reorganizing your priorities, and most of all, disappointing your own ideal self, the one who thinks they should be able to handle it all. But in that act of letting go, freedom is born. In that small choice not to react, not to people please, not to explain everything, your serenity is reborn. The world shouts, the world demands, the world craves your attention, but you are not the world. You are the one who decides how to live within it. If everything is collapsing, let it fall. Don't build on ruins what deserves new foundations. If it feels like everything is breaking, release it. Don't carry more than your soul can hold with dignity. And if you ever lose yourself among so many voices, return to yourself, to that silence where your center lives. Make it a habit. Make it a refuge. Make it an act of self-love. Because yes, the world can be noisy, chaotic, and unfair, but within you, there is an island, a solid rock, a flame that remains untouched, unless you give someone else the power to extinguish it, protect it, guard it, and above all, remember it. Let your peace not be a luxury. Let it be your foundation, your choice, your way of inhabiting the world. And if everything else falls apart, let it. Just make sure you don't. That is the greatest Stoic victory, to remain standing, even when everything around you is collapsing. Eighth Stoic lesson: external chaos is not your internal chaos. Sometimes you don't need a personal tragedy to feel like you're falling apart. Just turning on the TV, checking your messages, or walking down the street is enough. Everything seems to move too fast, break too easily, hurt more, and without realizing it, you begin to live the world's chaos as if it were your own. You absorb the rush, the anxiety, the desperation, and you start to believe that staying calm in the middle of it all is naive, but it's not. Calm is a decision, a silent act of rebellion in a world that glorifies drama and instability. And that's where the Stoics stood out, not because the world around them was stable, but because they learned not to let themselves be polluted by it. Seneca lived in a Rome shaken by corruption, betrayal, and violence. Epictetus was a slave under a cruel system. Marcus Aurelius ruled amid wars, plagues, and internal conflict. None of them lived peaceful lives, but all of them cultivated an unshakable soul. How did they do it? They understood that your environment does not define your peace unless you allow it to, that the real battlefield is not outside, but in your mind, that what happens outside may be a fire, but what you choose inside can be a temple. And that begins with one fundamental question: what are you allowing to enter you? Every news story you read, every complaint you hear, every conflict that doesn't belong to you. If you let it in without a filter, if you make it yours, you end up living in a chaos that is not yours. And that, over time, wears you down, breaks you, puts out your light. That's why the Stoics proposed a kind of inner armor, not from indifference but from clarity. Not everything that happens deserves your energy. Not everything that surrounds you must become a concern. Not everything vibrating in disorder should touch your center. Epictetus said it precisely. It's not the things themselves that disturb us, but our opinion about them. That means even if people are shouting, you can remain silent. Even if others are running, you can walk. Even if everything is collapsing, you can choose not to collapse with it. And it's not easy. You will feel the temptation to react, to defend yourself, to fix things, to intervene. But every time you do so without real necessity, you drain your energy on useless battles, and you lose sight of your main goal, to preserve your balance. Because balance is not achieved by imposing it on the outside, but by building it inside. Make your mind a selective space, an emotional checkpoint. Ask yourself daily, does this belong to me? Does this deserve to enter? Does this build or destroy my peace? And if it doesn't pass those questions, let it go. At first it may seem selfish, but it's not. It's respect for your mental health. It's loyalty to yourself. It's real self-care. A mind that absorbs everything ends up breaking. A mind that chooses wisely what to let in becomes stronger. Seneca also warned, the wise man avoids unnecessary contact because he knows every bond implies an exchange of energy. And you, what are you tied to unnecessarily? What arguments, what people, what news, what ideas are you clinging to, even though they harm you? The world's chaos may be permanent, but it doesn't have to be yours. You can live within it like someone walking through ruins, knowing that your inner home is still intact. That's what the Stoics did. They didn't ignore the chaos. They recognized it, they accepted it, but they didn't live in it. And you can do the same. You don't have to fix everything. You don't have to have an opinion on everything. You don't have to absorb the world's pain to prove your empathy. It's enough to hold your light. It's enough to tend your flame. It's enough not to let the outside world steal the best parts of you. Because in the end, the world doesn't need more people shattered by chaos. It needs more people at peace. And peace begins with you, with your mind, with your decision not to become a reflection of what surrounds you. You are not the noise. You are not the problem. You are not the storm. You are the calm space where noise doesn't enter, the problem doesn't rule, and the storm doesn't make landfall. Protect yourself, remember who you are, and choose not to be part of the chaos, even if you walk right through it. That is the most valuable kind of freedom, and it is also the most stoic one. If this knowledge is helping you, follow us and become part of this space created to protect your inner peace in the midst of chaos. Here, you'll learn to strengthen your mind, calm your emotions, and reconnect with yourself so you can face any storm with serenity. Ninth Stoic lesson: accept uncertainty as part of life. No one teaches us how to live with uncertainty. From a young age, we're programmed to seek certainty. We want answers before we ask questions, plans before we allow ourselves to live, control before we trust. And when life becomes uncertain, as it often does without warning, we feel that something has gone wrong. But it's not life that falls into disorder. It's our expectation of order that crashes into reality. The Stoics knew this. They understood that the desire for absolute certainty is a dangerous illusion, a desire that if left unchecked turns you into a slave of anxiety, fear, and perfectionism. Because nothing, not your plans, not your health, not your relationships, not even the world, is guaranteed. Uncertainty is not a flaw in the system, it is the system. Epictetus said, "It is not in our power to control what happens, but we can control how we respond to it." That is the Stoic foundation in the face of uncertainty, not to demand guarantees, but to strengthen ourselves for any outcome. And this doesn't happen overnight. It's cultivated. It starts with accepting that you will never have all the answers, and that's okay. That you won't always know what the next step is, and that's okay. That you might lose something valuable at any moment, and still you'll be okay. Accepting uncertainty is not resignation, it's strength. It's looking chaos in the eye and saying, even if I don't know what's coming, I trust that I can make it through. In a world obsessed with predicting everything, choosing to trust in your ability to adapt is an act of courage. Anxiety, on the other hand, is born when you demand guarantees from a future that doesn't exist yet. It's like wanting the ocean to promise calm before you dive in, but the ocean will never give you that promise. Because the ocean, like life, is unpredictable by nature. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "Remember that the future, whatever it may be, is beyond your reach. Your task is to act with virtue in the present." That means letting go of trying to guess what's next and starting to live what already is. Think about how much energy you've wasted trying to imagine every possible disaster. How many sleepless nights? How many plans never turned out the way you expected? How many times you feared something terrible would happen, and it didn't? And yet, here you are. That alone is proof of your resilience, of your ability to navigate the unknown. That even though the road wasn't what you had planned, you kept walking. Accepting uncertainty doesn't make you fragile. It makes you free. Free from depending on specific outcomes. Free from breaking when something changes. Free from living trapped in the endless what if that so often paralyzes us. Because behind that fear of uncertainty, what really lies is a fear of not being able to handle what comes. But that fear is an ancient lie. A lie inherited from a world that taught you to measure your worth by your ability to stay in control. Stoicism offers you a different measure. Your worth lies in how you respond when everything goes off script. And for that, you need presence, trust, flexibility. You need to stop seeing uncertainty as an enemy and start treating it like a teacher, because only in the uncertain do you discover your true power. Only when plans fail does creativity appear. Only when the familiar crumbles do you have space to reinvent yourself. In the end, life is not a formula, it's a dance. And to dance means letting go of control over the rhythm, accepting missteps, and flowing with what comes. Seneca warned that wisdom is not about avoiding pain, but preparing for it, and the same goes for uncertainty. It's not about avoiding it, but strengthening the soul to live with it. How do you do that? With small daily decisions. Practice detachment from expectations. Learn to tolerate discomfort without running from it. Observe your thoughts without taking them as absolute truths. Remind yourself that not everything needs to be under control for you to be at peace. And above all, trust. Trust that you've overcome things before. Trust that your value doesn't depend on the outcome. Trust that life, even when it seems messy, is leading you to places where you can grow. You don't need to predict the future to live well. You just need to prepare for it from a place of calm. And that calm doesn't arise when everything is clear. It's built precisely when everything is uncertain. Today, the Stoic lesson is this: don't run from the uncertain. Embrace it as part of the journey, because in that acceptance, your true freedom begins. 10th Stoic lesson: don't run from chaos, become it. We spend our lives trying to escape chaos. We want everything to be in order, for every piece to fit, for nothing to spiral out of control. But life doesn't cater to our craving for stability. It doesn't follow our schedules or respect our expectations. Life is movement, it's change, it's unleashed force. And sometimes, when you least expect it, that movement turns into a storm. In those moments, everything inside you screams, run, run from pain, run from discomfort, run from disorder, run from what you can't control. And yet Stoicism teaches us the opposite. Don't run from chaos, become it. Because chaos is not just destruction, it's also creation. It's the raw energy of transformation, the place where the old breaks apart so something new can be born. If you only see it as a threat, you'll miss the opportunity. Marcus Aurelius, amid wars, plagues, and betrayals, wrote, "A man's life is what his thoughts make of it." That means that even when everything outside crumbles, you can still stand tall, not by pretending to have control, not by denying what's happening, but by accepting the storm and learning to move within it. Calm isn't found by avoiding chaos, it's found by becoming someone who can walk through it. How do you do that? First, by letting go of the idea that external stability is what brings you peace. Because if your peace depends on the world, it will always be at risk. Then, by understanding that real strength isn't rigidity, it's flexibility. The tree that refuses to bend with the wind snaps. But the one that learns to lean survives. And not only survives, it grows stronger, because its roots, tested by the storm, dig deeper. Chaos doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to test you, to shape you, to show you how far you can go. When everything is stable, virtue is easy. But when everything falls apart, that's when you need temperance, courage, self-discipline, and compassion. That's when true Stoic character is born. And that strength doesn't come out of nowhere. It's trained. Every time you choose to face discomfort instead of avoiding it, you're training. Every time you choose wisdom over rage, you're training. Every time you breathe before you speak, reflect before you act, trust before you give up, you're forging your soul. Seneca wrote it plainly, "Difficult times strengthen men." But enduring isn't enough. It's not about surviving chaos while you wait for it to pass. It's about diving into it and using its energy to rise. Think of fire. Yes, it burns, but it also purifies, it transforms, it lights the way. You decide whether the fire of chaos consumes you or ignites you, and that shift doesn't start outside. It starts in your thoughts, in how you interpret what's happening. In the story you tell yourself when something breaks. You can say, "This is the end." Or you can say, "Something new begins here." You can say, "I can't handle this." Or you can say, "This is the moment I show who I really am." That's not a lie. It's not naive positivity. It's ancient wisdom. Because all great things are born from disorder. Wisdom is born from error. Strength is born from pain. Calm is born from chaos. And you're not here to fear that process. You're here to go through it. Remember that time you felt like everything was falling apart, that life made no sense, that you saw no way out. And yet you survived. You kept going. You grew. That's what chaos is, not punishment, training, a brutal reminder that you're alive and that you're capable of more than you know. A Stoic isn't someone who never suffers. It's someone who learns to use suffering as a source of clarity, as a forge for inner strength. And when you do that, something changes. You stop fearing change. You stop needing guarantees. You stop avoiding life. And you start living it, with all its chaos, its beauty, its pain, and its truth. Today, this 10th lesson doesn't ask you to find calm by hiding. It asks you to become someone who carries calm within, even when everything outside becomes a storm. Because if you can walk tall through ruins, if you can breathe deeply while everything burns, if you can hold your head high when everything falls, then you are no longer a hostage to chaos. You are its transformation. Not every collapse is visible. Sometimes you see someone smiling, doing everything right, seemingly strong, while inside they're on the verge of falling apart. Not all breakdowns make noise. Some happen in silence, in the solitude of a mind that just can't take any more. And the saddest part is that most people don't notice, because we've become experts at pretending we're okay. Because we were taught not to be a burden, not to complain, to keep going no matter the cost. We were taught that feeling is weakness, that vulnerability is defeat, that if you can't handle everything, there's something wrong with you. But that's not strength, that's disconnection, because there comes a point when pretending breaks you, when holding up the world becomes an act of betrayal against yourself, when the price of functioning is losing your peace, your joy, your identity. And that's where true chaos begins. Not outside, inside. Because the world may be falling apart, but if you're at peace with yourself, if you know how to breathe, if you can stop, look inward, and find stillness, then nothing defeats you. And that's what this session was meant to show you, that you weren't born to endure endlessly. You were born to live with purpose. To love, to fail, to rise again, to turn pain into wisdom, to transform breakdowns into breakthroughs. Stoic philosophy doesn't ask you not to feel. It asks you not to drown in what you feel. It teaches that every emotion is temporary, that every thought can be observed, that every crisis, if you know how to see it, is a teacher in disguise. And though you can't control the world, you can always control yourself. Your mind, your focus, your response, because that is your true freedom, choosing your attitude in the midst of chaos. And if you're here today, it's because a part of you no longer wants to run. A part of you is tired of pretending. A part of you longs to take a deep breath and find a space where you can be yourself. No masks, no pressure. A space to remember that you're not broken, you're alive. And being alive is messy, painful at times, but also incredibly brave. This community is that space. A stoic refuge for those seeking inner strength, for those who have felt on the edge, for those who want to learn how to find peace, even when everything around them falls apart. Here, we don't judge, we listen. We don't demand, we walk with you. We don't offer magic formulas. We offer real tools, practical philosophy, ancient wisdom for modern wounds. If this session touched your soul, if something in your day feels lighter after hearing us, stay, subscribe. Not out of obligation, but out of respect for your own journey. Because if you've made it this far, you deserve more than survival. You deserve to live with presence, with calm, with meaning. And that's what we'll do together, step by step, session by session, heart to heart, until chaos no longer frightens you, but becomes the fire that tempers your spirit. I can't wait to hear your stories of growth on this topic. Share your victories, your struggles, your experiences in the comments. If you're unsure what to say, write, "My inner peace is stronger than any storm," to show that you've completed this session. And don't forget to follow us if this content resonates with you and your values for living wisely through Stoicism. Your voice matters here. Each reflection strengthens and elevates our community, revealing the true value of every individual and shaping our shared Stoic identity. The comment that receives the most support will be pinned as the banner of this community of Stoic minds. A community that doesn't flee from pain, but walks through it, with courage, with wisdom, with honor. Joining this Stoic community means breaking the chains that limit you and building an inner fortress no one can tear down. Follow us so you never miss another Stoic reflection from us. Remember, every decision shapes your character. In the pinned comment, you'll find 2 paths, and each exists for a reason. There are choices that may seem small, but change everything. If something within you shifted after listening to this, don't let it pass you by. Subscribing isn't just a click, it's a decision. To no longer live asleep. To walk with awareness, with courage, with purpose. And if you choose to support this space as a member, you're not giving, you're planting. Thanks to you, this flame stays lit. Your presence allows us to keep sharing wisdom in a noisy world, building together a community of awake, grounded, and free souls. Choose with intention. Everything is right here, because your growth cannot wait. We'll meet again in our next session of Stoicism for Winners, where we'll continue exploring the riches of Stoic wisdom applied to modern life. Until we meet again, remember, you are the sole owner of your perception, the creator of your peace, and the warrior in your own battle. This is the Stoic legacy, the art of being unbreakable.